welcome back to Gooner Fanzine TV. The news has just been announced that Arsenal appointed Granit Xhaka as their permanent captain. Very strange decision for me. I'm here with Kishan. We're going to just have a quick chat about the Arsenal captaincy. What do you think about Granit Xhaka being appointed the permanent captain?
Yeah, I agree. It's a very strange sort of decision, particularly the reception he got when he came off against Aston Villa. You're thinking that your permanent captain is someone who's being booed, and it just doesn't really make sense, and it adds the sort of confusion that Unai Emery's side have had so far this season.
Yeah. For me, I think Bellerin was a much better choice, but I think there was a few better choices. Obviously, it's not. Nobody in the squad is really captaincy material for me. I think the options were probably Bellerin or Guendouzi, both of which are a bit young. You could also throw Rob Holding in there, but he's a bit young. You also thought Bellerin was probably the best of a bad bunch in a way.
Well, exactly that. I think people who put forward the likes of Lacazette and Aubameyang, that sort of striker role doesn't really, as a captain, doesn't really fit that sort of sort of Arsenal mould, if you like. So I think Bellerin was probably the better choice, and whether everyone's just jumping on the bandwagon because he's just come back and everyone remembers how much they like him. I don't know if that's got something to do.
Got a great reception at Nottingham Forest. Yeah.
Exactly, but certainly you'd think he has more of a long-term sort of span than perhaps Granit Xhaka, and I don't think if Hector Bellerin left tomorrow, for example, I think there'd be quite a few fans that'd be upset.
Yeah.
The same certainly can't be said for Granit Xhaka at all. So again, very bizarre decision, but you have to see who his deputies are.
Yeah. And Hector has been at the club for 6 years now, I think. He's basically a long-term Arsenal player.
I think he's a bit longer, but I think he's been the first team.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And he's basically the future of Arsenal in a lot of ways. I can't see him really moving on. So I think he would be quite a good option, especially as he's very much a leader off the pitch. He's very popular. So but Xhaka, he's not impressed this season so far, has he? I mean, nobody really wants him in the side except Emery, it seems.
No, I mean he hasn't impressed, and it's seen that with the players that Arsenal have at their disposal in midfield, the likes of Willock and Ceballos, who will push the play forward. Granit Xhaka does seem to have that extra touch in him, and we've seen the mistakes, most notably against Tottenham in the North London derby. That challenge that just
it's been a few of them, hasn't it?
Exactly, and it's just shown his reckless nature. So I just don't quite feel that he is the right appointment, and whether this will increase the pressure on him. He's already under so much, and now whether this will actually prove to be a breaking point.
Yeah, I feel like he's really holding the side back. I mean, in the Nottingham Forest game, I know it is just Forest and they didn't really offer much, but without him they were a lot faster in transition. I thought Willock really drove the pace forward, and Torreira as well. And I just think Xhaka holds the team back. I mean, you saw it in Frankfurt as well. A couple of times Arsenal were breaking and he just took the extra touch. Maybe he looked sideways rather than looking forwards. It's just really frustrating to see. I personally think he shouldn't really be starting every week, but Emery really backs him. Obviously, Emery said the club has tried to say that the players sort of voted for Xhaka, but Emery's the boss; he has the final call, and it's fairly obvious that Xhaka is a favoured player for him. Why do you think Emery is so keen on him?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because
that's one of the hardest questions I've ever asked.
Yeah, exactly. Because there is no apparent reason. You'd think maybe he's shown some sort of captaincy leadership by saying, Arsenal's scared. When they threw that sort of two-goal lead away at Watford, is that captaincy material?
Yeah.
You don't really know. But then there's a captain go lunging in on Heung-min Son in the North London derby like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So there's pros and cons, and all sorts of contradictory mannerisms that Xhaka has sort of given over his Arsenal career, and I just think that it's going to add to the tension surrounding.
Yeah, exactly.
An already very hostile aura around Xhaka himself.
Yeah, and I mean for me, that was a point I made a few videos ago, that it would have been it would have capitalised on what was quite a positive atmosphere around Arsenal. I think it's still quite a positive atmosphere, but it's growing more into frustration. I think Bellerin as captain would have really been a boost to the club. But yeah, also overlooked were Lacazette and Aubameyang, who, particularly Aubameyang, I thought in the Villa game, there was a penalty won. Aubameyang's a penalty taker, but he allowed Pepe to take the penalty. I thought that was a really mature thing to do. Although, as we said, a striker as a captain isn't ideal. He's showed leadership qualities, isn't he?
He has, and also you have to factor into that Lacazette and Aubameyang haven't yet committed their future. There was a lot of talk in the summer, about sort of they were close to extending, but that's actually been refused by the club, and rejected by the club, and although they have been talking, so I think had one of them committed by now, they might have been a more serious candidate. But as yet, neither have committed, and therefore, I think Granit Xhaka, that's who it's led to.
Yeah. And Arsenal have had basically a leadership problem for a while. I asked Per Mertesacker that question when we interviewed him a few weeks ago, and he basically admitted it. He said they had a leadership problem. Obviously, when he was captain himself, he wasn't in the side very much. Mikel Arteta didn't play very much when he was captain. No. Basically, going back
Laura
to Seth
Koscielny as well, sort of in and out. Injuries obviously played a part in that. But yeah, it's
basically goes back to Fabregas, and that's really got to change. I mean, I'm not sure, other than maybe Rob Holding really developing into a very regular first team player, which I think is a chance. Really, he seems like he's got captain material. Also, Per Mertesacker said to me that he tries to teach Rob Holding as much as he can. Which is obviously a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's probably looking forward the long-term option, but the short-term option really isn't there, is it?
Absolutely not. And you'd even look at the sort of experienced players. David Luiz, just joined from Chelsea, has not had a good start to life at Arsenal.
No.
Socrates is, it seems like he's regressing, if anything. This sort of experienced campaigners are just not there. And I think that, in a way you feel sorry for Unai Emery, because you say, well, why has he picked Granit Xhaka? But then on the flip side, well, who else is there that can lead this Arsenal team forward? And he's stuck in a bit of a catch-22 situation, really.
Yeah. Well, and it does mean that Xhaka is going to start the next few games, which will be quite frustrating. Obviously, on Xhaka as well, as soon as he came off against Aston Villa, Arsenal basically the comeback started and they turned the game around.
There was energy in the side.
And they were getting up the pitch quicker and they were putting Aston Villa under a lot more pressure. I understand, I've spoken to a lot of people in Frankfurt about Xhaka, and he does do a job that I don't think many Arsenal players can do in the squad. He does, well, he's supposed to do it anyway. He does pass, he does keep the tempo, and I'm not sure Guendouzi would be able to dictate the tempo from deep like that, and I'm not sure Torreira can either, and I'm not sure Willock are. They're all, Torreira is very defensive-minded, Guendouzi and Willock are very attack-minded, and Xhaka does have the balanced mindset. He just doesn't have the skills to carry it out.
No, he doesn't. But sometimes I do think, do Arsenal sort of need that sort of what he's meant to be is that Xabi Alonso sort of sitting there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And sometimes I do wonder with if you had a midfield of say Torreira, Guendouzi, and Ceballos, whether why wouldn't that work?
Yeah.
Because you do have sort of Torreira who will sit, Guendouzi who can go back and forth, and then Ceballos really sort of with those two behind him can sort of express himself. As they love to term it. So I don't really see the sort of need for that sort of player, but it seems that Emery's insistent on that position.
Yeah, he really. Yeah, that is what he wants, isn't it? I mean, yeah, as you say, I think having that Guendouzi and maybe Ceballos really dictating the tempo from deep. I know it doesn't get the best out of him, and then either Ozil or Willock in front doing the sort of centre attacking mid role. I think that might be better. But obviously, it's Emery's tactics. Clearly, this is what he wants to stick with, and at the minute, the players aren't there. He thinks Xhaka's the man, but the players aren't there for me. So possibly a signing in January. I don't know if there's really anyone on the radar.
No, I don't think there particularly is. Because I don't think it's an area Emery sees as an issue. It is bizarre, isn't it? We've been discussing for about 9 minutes now about how Xhaka's this inconsistency, but I don't think Emery sees that as an issue. I think they see the centre back as still an issue. I think they might try and go back in January for whoever that they might want. But I don't think they see central midfield as an issue. I don't see them going for January, and I don't think they're lacking in numbers. Particularly when Maitland-Niles comes back, Bellerin's established as that right back. Maitland-Niles will come back into that midfield. Add Torreira, Ceballos, Willock, Xhaka, Guendouzi to that. I don't think they'll see numbers as an issue, and I think that's what you sort of try and address in January. If you have issues numbers-wise, that's what you try and do.
Yeah. Well, it's going to continue to be a very frustrating issue for Arsenal fans, unfortunately. And it's a strange decision for me, but we'll see how it turns out. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, press the like button. And any thoughts on the captaincy? Who do you think should have? If you think Xhaka shouldn't have been the captain, who do you think should have been the captain? So leave that in the comments below, and subscribe as well. Loads more content and really worth your while to subscribe. So thanks for watching. Cheers.
Thank you.